What's going on, guys? Welcome back to F123 for My Team Career Mode Season 2, Round Number 2, the Chinese Grand Prix. Yes, we're here in China for the first Chinese race that we've had in F123. It's a track that I've quite enjoyed in previous F1 games. Of course, in real life, we haven't raced here in quite a few years. Was it 2018 or 2019 maybe that we last actually raced in China in real life? Hopefully, we'll be racing there in 2024, but you know, it's been cancelled for the last 2 or 3 years, so not the highest of hopes. We're going into this one though, putting a few upgrades on the car, durability upgrades, chassis upgrades. We had a chassis upgrade, a powertrain upgrade fail, so we're going to have to re-put that on the car. That's not going to come through until Miami next time around. Looking at R&D though, and we are still third fastest, or actually no, we were fourth fastest before behind Red Bull. We've moved away from Red Bull a little bit. However, Aston Martin have now overtaken Mercedes as the quickest car, at least on paper, on R&D. So it's Aston Martin, then Mercedes, a little bit of a gap back to ours, who now has a bit of a gap over Red Bull, and then it's a bit further back to the rest of the teams. So yeah, China, I do really enjoy this track. I hope we come here next year and, you know, in the future in real life, because it is a really good track. It generally seems to be pretty good for racing, and in the F1 games as well. I've always enjoyed it. I like the flow of the track. It's a little bit different with some of its corners. Like, you know, turn 1 is a very interesting kind of a long corner. And it's just, you know, you've got the big long back straight, but also a lot of technical sections as well. This bit we're coming up to here in Sector 2, very quick part. You can almost go flat through there. I have to give it a little bit of a lift. Maybe if you get the line correct and you have an exactly perfect setup, you can go flat around there, but I can't at the moment. This bit here is also very tricky getting on the power. We end up going P7 in Q1. Alexander Albon has a 5-second penalty there for illegal blocking because Charles Leclerc is out in Q1. The Ferrari driver doesn't even make it to Q2 this time around, and that is because he was on a quick lap, quick enough to get him into Q2, but Albon apparently blocked him, and or at least that's what I assume happened, because Albon's got a penalty for blocking. I had a little look. Leclerc's times for sectors 1 and 2 were really good, but then his third sector was like a second off the pace. So I'm guessing that's what happened there. So Charles Leclerc, the defending world champion from Season 1, is out of qualifying in Q1. It was a devastation for Ferrari in Saudi Arabia with both the Ferraris out in Q2. This time one of them doesn't even make it out of Q1, so that is pretty big. As we're now in Q2, we had a purple first sector here. The first sector seems to be where I make the most time up. I don't know what it is, but looking at the sector times, I really seem to make up time in that first sector. The middle sector is where I probably struggle the most. Then the third sector, we're about where we should be. We ended up going quickest in Q2 here. Very good time. Sonoda, my teammate, only just makes it into Q3 in P10 there. So not a great run from him, but he does just about scrape through. Piastri out-qualifies Norris for the first time this season in the McLaren, so that's pretty good from him. But both McLarens out in Q2. And then we get into our Q3 lap time. So this is the long right hand here, and you really can lose a lot of time here if you don't get it correctly. We just get it hooked up pretty well, I think, through there, and then out of this corner. Once again, you have to be a little bit cautious, a little bit careful on the power, because you can get the car stepping out. Kind of straight line through this bit here. It's a purple first sector again. Like I said, we are really quick through sector 1 as we now head into this next section here, which is a section which you really have to be careful. We actually maybe go, we try, I think, and go flat through there. It wasn't too bad, maybe washed out a little bit wide, and then we head through this next very tricky section, as once again, maybe a little bit wide out of there, not the best through that section, and it's only going to be a green second sector as we now head into this next part. Another very tricky part here as you go around this long right hand corner to get onto the back straight. You really want to get on the power as early as possible, but if you do it too early, you will spin around and it will not be very good for you. So we head down the back straight here. DRS is open. Our awesome engine speed and powertrain is helping us here, although Aston Martin now has the quickest engine, and it's now by a considerable amount actually. They've really upgraded their powertrain. I think that's why they are now the quickest team, because their powertrain is actually a decent amount above us, and even, you know, we are a decent amount above the teams behind us on the powertrain department. As we cross the line, it's only P9, unfortunately. We actually went about 2/10 slower than we did in Q2. I must have absolutely smashed out that Q2 lap, because I felt like that Q3 lap wasn't a bad lap, but that Q2 lap must have just been amazing. Tsunoda goes P6. If we did our Q2 time, we would have been ahead of Tsunoda in P6. It's a Mercedes front row lockout again. This time it's Lewis Hamilton on pole though. So let's see what can happen for this first ever Chinese Grand Prix in F123.
It's time again then for Formula One in Shanghai. Northwest of the thriving city of over 24 million people is a circuit that first featured in the championship calendar back in 2004. It played host to Formula One's 1000th Grand Prix back in 2019. We start a lap here at Shanghai with the long, difficult right-handers of turns 1 and 2, the first of 16 corners that make up this 3.3-mile circuit. The incredibly long back straight provides the best passing opportunity of the lap, with speeds in excess of 200 miles per hour before we head into the braking zone of turn 14. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position. And starting next to them is George Russell. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Sainz, Tsunoda, Perez, Gasly, Davies, Stroll, Ocon, Bottas, Liam Lawson, Oscar Piastri, Norris, Joe, Leclerc, Albon, Doohan, Magnussen, Sargent and Nick de Vries. And now it's time to head down to the track. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the run down into turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
Alright, so here we are on the grid for the Chinese Grand Prix in Season 2 of F123 My Team Career Mode. Lights are on for quite a long time, but they finally go out. We are starting on the soft compound tyres. A lot of the top 10 starting on the medium, so a little bit of a strategy difference here. We get boxed in by Sainz and Perez a little bit into turn 1. Gasly has tried going for a move on Perez and Sainz, and they are 3 wide as they head around turn 1 and into turn 2, still 3 wide. Great little battle going on with these guys. Stroll has actually given us a little bit of a tough time from behind, as well as now we're actually alongside Gasly as we head down into the next corner. It's 2 by 2 with Sainz and Perez and myself and Gasly. We're going to try slingshotting it around the outside. There's yellow flags behind. Not sure what that is all about. Maybe just a little bit of contact, a little bit of concertinaing by some cars behind. We get past Gasly though, so we're up into P8 now, as Perez is the car ahead of us. And we're just going to continue on here through this next section. Sainz has been given a 5-second penalty up the top left there. We get a massive moment of oversteer around that corner. That lets Gasly get back past us again. And now Stroll's coming at us as well, as we're just going to squeeze him out as we head into this section and on to the back straight. Just trying to compose ourselves a little bit there. I don't know what that was, just a bit stuck on the curb or a bit too eager on the throttle. We had a massive sideways moment, and that was not a good start there. After we made the overtake on Gasly, we've now got to do it again because, yeah, he's ahead of us once again. So we're back in P9 where we started this race. But, yeah, Sainz been given a 5-second penalty. I had a look after the race, and that was because of ignoring yellow flags. So I think those yellow flags came out behind us. And he was just finishing a move on Perez at the time. So I guess he overtook under yellow flags just. So he's been given a penalty for that. So that is very unfortunate for Sainz. But yeah, that could ruin his race here. So he's going to have to really try and push on as we now head through turn 1, turn 2. We're staying on board with ourselves into lap 2 because we've got a really good run off turn 2 there on Pierre Gasly up ahead. And we're going to have a look to the outside. We are then, though, going to switch to the inside. And we're going to go smacking on the brakes into the next corner. Make that move. Purple sector 1. And we're past Pierre Gasly once again. So we've made up for that issue at the start, for that mistake at the start, should I say. Alexander Albon is trying to make his way past the McLaren of Oscar Piastri, who has locked up and gone into Alexander Albon and has given Albon front wing damage. That is very unfortunate for the Williams driver. He is now going to have to pit because he has got some damage. And there is a big cluster of cars right at the back of the field here. Both the AlphaTauris, the Williams of Sargent, you've got Norris, you've got Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari as they go 4 wide into the hairpin. They pretty much crawl to a stop here as all 4 cars just kind of get stuck around each other, and Leclerc makes about 4 positions in that one corner there. He was on the outside. He's made a great little move there, and he is trying to make his way through this race after starting P17 because of Albon's penalty, 1 position higher than he qualified, as Liam Lawson is now trying to make a move on Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo. So, of course, Lawson, this is only his 2nd race in Formula 1. It looks like he's running the number 13 on his car. I'm not sure if it's 13 or 73. Looks like 13 to me, which is weird because I didn't think you were able to run number 13. I thought, because 13 is an unlucky number, I didn't think you could run 13, but I'm pretty sure that's the number he's got on his car as we have a look through there. Definitely looks like a 13 to me, but he unfortunately gets re-overtaken by Bottas. We continue on with Perez up ahead and Gasly behind, kind of just keeping the gap as it is at the moment. As we head down the back straight, yellow flags. It looks like Sainz actually pulling over on the right there, but then Perez has gone in the back of him, and we so nearly made contact with the Mexican. That was absolutely ridiculously close. Sainz's engine has gone up in smoke. Perez is out of the session because of that massive crash, and now the safety car is out on lap number 4 of the Chinese Grand Prix. That was near disaster for us. That was ridiculously close. We're going to have a look at a replay of this. So Perez just behind Sainz here, got a bit of a gap. Sainz pulls over to the right because his engine dies, but then he pulls back onto the racing line. Perez doesn't have time to avoid, and we very minimally avoid contact there. We look on board from Perez. Look, Sainz just comes back onto the track. Perez tries to turn away from it, but can't quite get it done in time. Has broken his car. He's into the wall as well. This is us so nearly crashing into the back of Sergio Perez. We ended up going onto the grass in that move there, and then we'll get past Sainz as he comes to a stop. But look how close. This is how close we were when we avoided Perez. That is absolutely ridiculous. I knew it was close, but I didn't realize it was this close until I had a look at this. That is ridiculously... Look at that. You cannot be any closer without making contact. You could barely fit a piece of paper in between our 2 wheels there. That was so nearly the end of our race, but thankfully we've carried on. The safety car comes in on lap number 6 onto 7. We decided not to come into the pits for a pit stop because if I was going to come in now, I was either going to have to commit to a 2-stop or go onto the hard compound tyres. And I felt like, you know what, I think it's quite early. We can just keep on going and go onto the medium compound just like we were originally going to do. So that is still the plan. As on the restart though, we obviously haven't got our tyres up to temperature very well. We're just not very good in the turbulent air of cars, and Gasly's now coming back at us. As we head into the hairpin, we just try braking later than him, staying ahead of him, getting the traction off the corner around that hairpin, and we do manage to just about keep the position from Gasly. But Bottas, you would have seen yellow flags behind us. Bottas ended up with a puncture down the main straight here. Don't quite know what that puncture was from because that was quite a bit further kind of up the straight from where Perez crashed, so maybe that was a bit of debris from, I don't know, from Albon, but that's not really in the right spot either. So for some reason Bottas has got himself a puncture, so that's kind of screwed his race over. He was actually running in P10 as well, so very unfortunate for him. George Russell managed to get past Lewis Hamilton for the lead of the race, so that now puts Russell, the other Mercedes driver, in the lead. Charles Leclerc still trying to make moves in this race. He's now going for a move on Oscar Piastri to get ahead of the McLaren driver. This will put him up into P11 because the car ahead is Liam Lawson in the Haas. He's currently running P10, so great stuff from Lawson here, doing a very good job to be running in the points right now. Leclerc wasn't able to get past Piastri there, but down the main straight here, as Norris has a look on his teammate, Leclerc does manage to get up the inside of Oscar Piastri and is now ahead of both McLarens and up into P11, so Leclerc making very good progress in this race. Very much a recovery drive from him. as we go a little bit hot as we head into the pits, but nothing too bad. Into the pits for our medium compound tyres now. My engineer told me to come in 1 lap later after the safety car, but I felt like I wanted to try and get an undercut on the car, so we're going to come in a lap earlier, which is when we were supposed to come in anyway if the safety car hadn't happened. So lap number 12, we're into the pits, we're onto a set of medium compound tyres, and I'm hoping that maybe we can perhaps undercut a couple of cars up ahead. That is as long as we don't have too much traffic, and we don't, because we come across Nick De Vries down the main straight. It's an easy overtake with DRS, so no time lost there, and if anything we actually gained a little bit from slipstreaming behind him. Maybe a little bit of time lost behind the home driver of Zhou Guan Yu. He's now the car ahead of us as we're very close to him as we head onto the back straight here, but thankfully we can actually pull alongside him before we even get to the DRS zone. We activate DRS and can just power past the Chinese driver in his home Grand Prix. That now puts us up into P8, and I believe now cars ahead of us have come in to pit off the medium compound tyres. And sure enough, as we come through turn 1, we're actually going to try and get past George Russell here. The undercut has worked an absolute dream. I was thinking, oh, maybe we could undercut, you know, Tsunoda, Verstappen, but we've undercut Alonso and Russell as well, and are now up into effective P2 in the race as Stroll comes into the pits. So now we are legitimately in P2, but Russell is coming back at us. He's on the hard compound tyres, but that Mercedes has quite a bit more pace than us, and yeah, we're struggling a little bit, but are managing to just about keep on to P2 at the moment. Hamilton has absolutely driven away in the lead. He's also on the medium compound, so he's doing the same strategy as us, starting on the softs. But Russell is very quick on these hard compound tyres, and we just cannot defend from him as we head into the hairpin off the straight. Russell is around our outside, a little bit of contact with his rear wheel there, but we just kind of have to let him go. We get a warning for a collision, but it's nothing major, no damage or anything, and he has got the position. However, we try and hook up behind him as we head down to turn 1 here, deploy as much battery as we can, and our superior speed with DRS means that we get back up into P2 as we head through turn 1, go a little bit deep. That lets Russell have a little look up the inside now. We're going to be briefly side by side into turn 3, though. I've got the outside line, and Russell has to be careful from Alonso behind him, who, by the way, is having a great race here after his absolute woeful race in Saudi last time out. He's actually running, well, he was in a podium position before we came along. Russell, though, does manage to get past us down the main straight on lap number 18, and unfortunately we weren't quite able to get him into turn 1. However, we are all over the back of him a couple of laps later, and look at the run we have through these corners. I guess this is just the medium compound tyre really working for us, and we've got an amazing run on him. We're going to do the same thing we did to Gazzy. We're a bit further back, but he leaves the door open a little bit. That means that I'm going to sense an overtake, and we're going to be side by side with him as we head round this very fast left-hand corner. We're going to stay side by side, though. It is great racing between us two, but then I'm going to get pinched in. I thought, nah, I cannot go flying into that corner, or else I'm going to go straight into the side of Russell. So I had to back off there, and unfortunately that's going to be that, because we're going to start falling back a little bit now. The rain is starting to fall here in China. There was rain forecast for the end of this race. It's come a little bit earlier than I was expecting, and this is where I really start to struggle, you know, on dry compound tyres, on slick tyres, on a track that's starting to get wet. This is where the AI definitely flourished compared to me, and Alonso's passed. Verstappen has now managed to get himself past as well. That's put us down from P2 a few laps ago, down now into P5, so we're really falling back in these wet conditions, as it is getting wetter, but still DRS is enabled, and there's not many laps left to go, so I think maybe we're going to try and hang out on dry tyres till the end of the race. As there's moves going on behind us, this is Lance Stroll trying to get past Esteban Ocon, and he gets that move done. So Stroll on a bit of a charge in that Aston Martin, showing it has got pace here, although his teammate is doing much better this weekend. Leclerc is also still on a charge because he's now behind my teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who once again I've heard over the radio has a mechanical issue. So that's the first two races in a row that Tsunoda's had a mechanical issue. Not bad enough to retire the car, but enough that it's slowing him down. And Leclerc is past him and up into P6. What a recovery drive from Charles Leclerc. Can he catch up to us? Because we're definitely not massively quick in these conditions. Liam Lawson is still having an absolute show here. I think this is Lawson, now battling with Alexander Albon in the Williams. Unfortunately, Lawson is no longer in the top 10, but he's still trying to get a decent position here as these two are side by side through all of Sector 1. Great racing between these two young drivers. Lawson on the inside, Albon on the outside. Albon, though, is going to get the traction around the outside here in these wet conditions and keep the position, but Lawson putting up a very good fight and having a great race here in China for only his second race in Formula 1. Stroll, still making moves here. He's now got the other Alpine driver of Pierre Gasly to go around the outside of at the hairpin, and in the wet conditions that outside line seems to be the better line, and he gets up another position. However, it doesn't last very long because literally on the next lap he is leading Gasly around this next corner and he puts the power on too much and spins the car around. It's not going to cause a safety car or anything, just a little bit of a stoppage there, but we look on board from Gasly as we see Stroll up ahead just puts the power down, spins the car a full 180 around, and yeah, not great there. That means that Stroll is now probably not going to score any points. Fernando Alonso, though, I just wanted to have a look here. This is the final lap of the race, heading to the checkered flag. He's going to come home for P3, so it's a podium for Fernando Alonso, his second of this F1 23 career mode of ours. And what a recovery from the dismal race that was Saudi Arabia last time, where he finished P18 and spun pretty much once every lap. Lewis Hamilton went on for a pretty dominant win. Russell and Alonso were actually catching him in those few laps, but we definitely held them up a little bit to stop them from getting the win. So it's Hamilton P1, we come home for P5, so it's not quite the result we had in Saudi, but it's still a good result. 10 points on the board. Leclerc, I think quite rightly, gets driver of the day. So there we have it, that's Chinese Grand Prix.
It's a performance to be proud of from our Chinese Grand Prix winners here today. Tell me, Ant, how do they manage to achieve this win?
I really feel the track layout combined with the track temperatures we saw today suited their car. These cars come alive when the tyres are just at the right temperature, and the driver did a great job managing that as well. They just look so comfortable out there. It's like anything, it always looks so easy when it all just clicks.
And I can see the drivers starting to approach the podium for the victory celebrations. A real team victory today. Everybody played their part. Congratulations then to Mercedes, your race winners.
So Mercedes this time convert their 1-2 in qualifying to a 1-2 in the race. It's Lewis Hamilton on top here in China. George Russell takes P2. Fernando Alonso gets back up on the podium for the second time this season, first time since Mexico last season, and a massive recovery from him after the terrible race that was Saudi Arabia. Like I said, probably the worst race of his career. Back on the podium here in China, and Charles Leclerc, what a result from him, P17 to P6, a great result. We ended up P5. Even in dry conditions, I think Russell and Alonso were a little bit quicker than us today, quite a bit quicker actually in that Mercedes and Aston Martin. The big crash between Sainz and Perez, definitely the highlight of this one though. What a moment that was earlier on in the race. And yes, Tsunoda came home P7, so one position better than he did in Saudi, but unfortunate for him to have two mechanical issues in a row here, because Tsunoda's really showing some good pace in this race. I think if he didn't have that issue, he possibly would have been hounding us for P5. But yeah, it is unfortunate. Hamilton takes the lead of the Drivers' Championship, then we get pushed down to P2, and then it's George Russell P3, so Mercedes 1 and 3. And in the Constructors, Mercedes have also taken over the lead as well from us. A decent lead of points ahead of us in the standings. Red Bull 3rd, Alpine 4th, Aston Martin jump up to 5th with Alonso's podium, McLaren 6th, Ferrari are down in 7th, although they're now on 10 points. They move a couple of positions down because of Aston Martin and McLaren's better races. And yeah, every other team, no points for them scored as of yet. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.